But we have some plenty to talk about. Let's see. Philip, Indiana basketball getting a visit. Kyle Filipkowski is going to be the first visit, I guess. First visit Indiana's had in, is this 2 years?
It's a long time. I don't know exactly the last time they had one. I imagine they had some unofficials at least in the winter time of 2020 before things shut down. But it's crazy how long the recruiting dead period was extended. I mean, I get the caution. You don't want people in and out of campus like that, but it is nuts. So that's crazy that he's going to be the first in that long. And he's I know my buddy Rick Bozich is high on him and was really hoping things progress. And they seemingly are with him, but I think as quickly as momentum can build with a recruit, it can deflate even faster. We've seen that with some of the guys that Archie Miller went after that were IU leans and they were in good shape until they weren't.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that has to do with what they were seeing on the court. I really do. I mean, you would have to be pretty unbasketball intelligent, unsports intelligent to not have watched and really questioned what was happening.
Yeah.
As a player, as a coach, as a lot of things, but that's not the case anymore. You know what's there. You know the opportunities are there. You know the resources that are there. Filipkowski is definitely, he's up. He's a Northeast kid, so that's, you don't see a lot of kids from the Northeast come to Indiana. Biggs, Thomas Bryant, but I think that was just because it happened to work out with that. But this is a big 6'10" kid. But Mike Woodson, that's someone that could work just with a kid like that, and I think he knows that. Dane Fife had been recruiting him when he was at Michigan State, and Dane does a great job in recruiting. So that relationship had already begun, and it continues. So he said he was impressed with Coach Mike Woodson. He was showing him some of the clips of his players from the Knicks, which was cool to see how they run certain pick and rolls. He talked a lot about Steve Novak and Julius Randle. He had really enjoyed that. So having Mike Woodson talk about all that and show all that, man, that just carries weight. I mean, a lot of weight, because this is where they want to be.
Yeah, and I think that is obviously very intentional. Let me show you some clips of my time in the NBA, son. Sit down, and let me show you what I think you can do with your game. I think that is smart use of where he's been, and a good reminder of where he's been for a player that comes to Indiana or is considering coming to Indiana and wondering if it can help him get to the next level. Well, look where the head coach has been.
And that is not going to be a problem. The problem is just going to be, when we keep talking about it, is just roster management. Because that is going to be such a freaking, every year you are never going to know. You used to have a very good idea. Of course, there's always a surprise here and there, but you had a pretty much dead on idea what you were going to need. Now you're going to have a good idea plus double that maybe.
Yeah, and I think that we all say this, that yes, at any given moment, one of your players can decide to leave and go, but it works both ways. So you can pluck someone that quickly as well if they're in the portal. So what I do think it means is there's likely somebody on staff. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know if it's an assistant coach. I don't know if it's someone off the bench that had better be very well versed on who's in the portal, who's considering going in the portal, even though you can't talk to them until they're in the portal, and having a real good idea of who Indiana might be interested in should a position surprisingly open up. That is going to be a new aspect for somebody on basketball staffs across the country.
Yeah, and the recruiting also, how difficult is that going to be? You put time in to a kid, but then this transfer portal, you have to balance developing and getting. There's going to be talent that is already there. If you need a point guard and you've got a kid that you've been recruiting, but all of a sudden a kid becomes available in the portal that is a veteran, that's a scorer, that is exactly what you need right now, and you've got one scholarship.
Yep.
I mean,
and that's tough for 18-year-old kids, and I think, I always think of those Iowa State teams that Fred Hoiberg had. He succeeded with transfers, but that was with sitting out a year transfers. And I remember he adjusted well to doing that and had some really strong Iowa State teams. I think about the early UK Calipari years. He was one of the first to be like, we are going to lean into this one and done thing. And it had been a huge success for him. So the staff that figures this out the fastest is probably going to be in position to really go on a run. I wish I had the answers because I certainly wouldn't be sitting here looking for a job if I was, Jim, but I don't have the answers. But I'm telling you, somebody's going to figure this out, and they're going to have a really strong run of college basketball until everyone copycats.
This is the only thing that saves John Calipari. I said 2 years ago that as soon as the one and done ends, he's out. He's done because all he does is out recruit people. And then, of course, it just coincidentally, when the Nike train ended after the FBI investigation, that train seemed to run a little short quicker than normal. But anyway, I said as soon as that rule goes into place, he's done. This may save him.
I think so.
I don't think he's a very good coach. I think he out recruits people, gets the talent, out talents you, and that's it. And with that rule out, as you saw last year, that was a serious issue. Transfers, if you can get Mike McClung or whomever, they're CJ Frederick and those guys who are just, gee whiz. Come on, man.
Yep.
It's kind of aggravating, really. It's aggravating a lot, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. But you would think that maybe a rule in place, you can only take so many transfers. In Europe, you can only have most programs. You can only have 2 Americans on a team over there. So maybe
I think it'll be modified. I don't have the answers. I've heard somebody suggest, maybe after 2 years, you can have the one-time transfer just so you're not dealing with a whole bunch of freshmen who didn't get their playing time right away. And, I was like that. I could see that. And the caveat was that if a coach leaves, then you don't have to stay. If your coach leaves, you can leave with a free one-time transfer. But otherwise, after your sophomore year, then the one-time transfer kicks in. And I do think some modification would help because it does feel like the pendulum was so far one way and then they just all the way to the other side. And it's just kind of like the Wild West right now. And I'm all for kids having options. I mean that. But it does seem a little bit crazy. Or the portal window needs to be that developed. If you're not in it at a certain time, then you got to wait till next year.
That's July 1st. I think that is. I think they have a July 1st deadline for that.
Have they established that now?
I think so. I think that there is a July 1st deadline. But yeah, it's but that's what the NCAA does. They stick their head in the sand, stick their head in the sand until they get drug out by their ankles. And by that time, this happens.
Yeah, I agree.
Muppet Mark Emmert, if he hadn't have done that and stuck his head in the sand and fought this and fought all of this stuff, name, image, likeness, and all, now it's getting shoved down their throat in a way that's probably going to damage college athletics, I think.